And welcome back to Cottage Talk. I'm Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Giannis Shanaeus. This is our preview episode of Fulham versus Everton. And Giannis, we got a lot to talk about. This is going to be a shortened show as we normally do with our preview shows. And unfortunately, we were trying to get a guest to join us, Richard Buxton, but we were having some technical difficulties. That was for the delay. The reason why we were not going off right from the get-go. So we were trying to get Richard's mic to hook up with us, but, technical problems, it happens. But you know what? The show must go on, my friend. And Mr. Shanaeus, it's been a while, so it'll just be you and me. We're going to talk about this match, and I look forward to talking about the upcoming – it's a huge match on Sunday.
Yeah, it is. It wouldn't it be – I think we've won at Goodison Park twice since 1948, and one of them was an FA Cup game on Valentine's Day. So we've got our next two games. Last time we won at Goodison was 59, and last time we won at Burnley, I think, was 51.
Yep.
So it would be really nice to get a win on Sunday. I mean, how many more good performances can you put in without finally getting 3 points? I thought,
right.
Wet Spam, we were finally going to get a win, and it wasn't to be. But the news that Calvert-Lewin's going to be out on Sunday helps us out, I think, big time.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, they're still a very good side, and they're well coached and well drilled. I'm looking forward to an entertaining game on Sunday.
I am too, and it's funny because the reverse fixture, we saw exactly what I saw at the beginning of the season from Everton. And let's just talk about Everton just in general terms, because it's a team that's impressed me. But what's interesting, when looking back at the match and looking back at Everton, maybe I'm wrong on this because I don't watch them each and every week, but I think that they have their times when they look dominant. But I think that they also have their times where potentially they can be had. Giannis, what are your thoughts about them in general? Because they do look impressive at times, but then other times I'm thinking, okay, they can be beat.
Yeah, they're topsy-turvy team, but they've got a lot of talent. I mean, the start of the season, they were all going all guns blazing. Calvert-Lewin was scoring goals for fun. They lost. They had to, Rodriguez has been in and out of the lineup through injury. They lost Lucas Digne, their captain, for a little while through injury, and that was a huge loss. He's such a good player. I still find it incredible to think that he couldn't make it with PSG or Barcelona. Yeah, because he's a quality defender. And in that first game at the Cottage, he really burned us a couple of times on the left-hand side.
Yep.
And on the other side, but then remember, we weren't settled at the back then.
We weren't.
And on the other side, Alex Iwobi, of all people, was at a super game against us. But now we've got Robinson in there, and if they're going to, if Scotty decides to put Kenny Tete at the back there, I think, Digne's a very good player. But I think if we take that out, then we just have to worry about Richarlison, who is playing well. As I said, they've got quality all over the place. But it's that maintaining our discipline. In the first game, we didn't. We lost 3-2, but we could have considered a lot more goals. So, but I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun game. Okay,
and that's going to lead me just to really focus a little bit more on this, because I want to get your thoughts. You've already shared a little bit. What can we learn from the first match and say, you know what, Fulham can do this against this team, or they can't do this against Everton? We'll talk about strategy, what you think Scott Parker should do against this Everton side in the second half of this episode. But just looking back at it, like you said, they got off to this very good start. And, I want to give the guys from Fulhamish credit. They talked about the fast start that they had the first time. Obviously, that's something that you don't want to happen again against Everton. But the second half was different for Fulham. So what can we learn from that first match?
Well, that first game, we were all over the place defensively. I mean, we conceded three to Arsenal, four to Leeds, 3 to Villa, and we were shipping for fun. And it was at that time we were starting to bet in the new players. The thing about them is they're very, very good counter-attacking side. They've got a lot of speed. They're fairly organised at the back. They're just a very good professional team. But as you said at the start of the show, it's they can be a Jekyll and Hyde team. Yeah. I mean, it was a couple of weeks ago they lost at home to Newcastle, and I'm still scratching my head at that one. So they've got the ability, and yet in the week, the FA Cup game 5-4. I mean, it's a sort of game that the neutrals love to watch. But both, Angelotti and Mourinho would have been, pulling their hair out, what's left of it, So, it's great for a neutral, but it's not great for us as coaches to watch nine-goal games.
Right.
Especially going to extra time, because on heavy surfaces and it's wet and cold, you get the sort of injuries that Calvert-Lewin picked up. I think we're going to have to be a lot more aware and try and keep patient and keep our defensive shape. In that game against Everton, first game we were very open, and I think we've become a lot tighter defensively, which is good. I mean, if you look back to the game against the Spammers last week, we really gave them nothing. We really did. And when their supporters are going, well, you deserve to win. You're the better side. Even when Moyes, it can be a miserable SOB, says you were the better side. I think that says it. So keep that shape, but be mindful of their break, because Rodriguez is going to be fit tomorrow. Keane's going to be fit tomorrow. Without Calvert-Lewin, they've still got enough weapons up front.
They do,
and we have to be careful. But I think the key to our game tomorrow will be the fullbacks and how Robinson and Tete can handle Iwobi and Dini's runs and crosses. That's the other thing, his crosses. And if we can cut that out, I think we've got a decent chance of getting something up there.
Okay, excellent. All right, let's talk a little bit about Carlo Angelotti. I want to get your thoughts on him. Again, he's been in charge of Everton now for a little bit. And I thought this was quite the deal for Everton to get him. He's a world-class manager. What are your thoughts about him and what he's done so far at Everton, Giannis?
Well, if you look down at the list of Chelsea managers that have been sacked since Abramovich came in, and you've got some fantastic just all the top to bottom.
Yeah.
And Angelotti was the one sacking that I still, as a neutral, grates me more than any other, because he just won the Premier League. They were an outstanding team, and then they have a little run of results, and he just decides to fire him. I mean, the contempt. The contempt for Chelsea that we fans have goes a lot deeper than your typical local rivalry. A lot has to do with their ownership, because they were a nothing club before Abramovich came in, and he just brought all his trillions in and did all what he needed to do. But this guy is so ruthless that he takes someone like Lampard, who shouldn't have been hired, in my opinion, in the first place. They go on a difficult run, and he fires him, and I think, you don't become a bad coach overnight. Ancelotti, whether it's been, in Germany or whether it's been with Italy or there was Chelsea, Everton, I thought that was a huge coup to get him. And he's very quietly built up the squad. And Everton have got, unfortunately, a reputation of not buying the cast-offs, but if Liverpool get A, Everton will get A1 or B. So picking up players like, not so much Dini, because he's really blossomed at Goodison Park, but picking up someone like James Rodriguez, I thought was a really big coup. It was sending a message. And if you look at this squad, this strongest lineup, they're a match for anybody in the country, in my opinion. And they're entertaining. And that's the other thing.
They're very entertaining.
They're fun to watch.
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
You can't, they're I call a proper football club. The Jekyll and Hyde thing, I think, will disappear by next year. A couple of signings, depending what happens with this pandemic, to give them a little bit of depth, possibly another striker, possibly, Sigurdsson, where's his shelf life? How much longer does he have?
Yep.
But I think that, I don't think they're far off, to be honest. It's just they've got you've got the teams at the bottom and the middle that you should beat. They tend to compete really well against the top teams, but against teams, Newcastle, let's be honest. And Callum Wilson's injured now, so we'll see what happens there. Yeah,
I know. I think that's going to really affect them. And,
But Ancelotti's done a superb job, and he might just get them into Europe. And if he gets them into Europe, that's more than the owners and the fans could have possibly wanted or dreamt of. And kudos to them. He's an outstanding manager, and nothing but respect for him.
Okay, excellent, Giannis. All right. As we start to look forward to this match, and I want to actually focus on two players. One will surprise you just a little bit on Fulham. Let's start here because Scott Parker talked a little bit about him in his presser today. I want to get your thoughts, about Kearney, okay? Because I think in some ways Fulham have really missed Tom Kearney. I'm curious your view on this because it's interesting when you look at Fulham and you're looking at that creative spark, and say what you want about Tom Kearney, Tom Kearney does offer that spark. Again, is he the quickest? No, of course not. But I want to say Tom Kearney does have the ability to give you that creative pass. So, in your opinion, do you think Fulham have missed Tom Kearney?
You know what? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I mean, there's no doubt about his ability to distribute the ball, but I think since Kearney's injury, and he was playing. I mean, he was playing well.
He was right before this happened.
But I think we've evolved as a team. I think we're a slightly different team now, and I think the players that have been brought in, Anguissa's looked a little bit tired recently. Lamina's been doing well. Harrison Reed has been absolute lights out. But we're evolving as a team, and it's going to sound odd, but then, I mean, what can we do? If the lad is injured, the lad is injured. It'd be like Everton saying, well, we're going to miss Calvert-Lewin. Yeah, he's your best striker. But Angelotti will say, well, if we don't have Kearney, we don't have Calvert-Lewin, we just have to get on with it.
Right.
And, whatever the injury is with Tom, it's obviously been ongoing. I felt at the transfer deadline, we obviously needed more striker help. We didn't get it. That's another story for another day.
Okay.
And then for the midfield, if we knew, as Tony Khan surely would have known, that we were missing a creative spark and that Kearney was out, was there a possibility to get somebody on loan? Remembering that we now have a squad of 24. And out of that, we've got sick note Congolo. So basically it's 23. Could we have made an approach there when you see teams like West Brom, for example, picking up players in the transfer window, and yet we just got Josh Maja. I understand Kearney's thing, but I'm sure he's probably going, well, yeah, but he's just one player. If we don't have him, we might miss him, but we've got to make do because all teams have injuries.
Right.
Some have it worse than others, and we just have to get on with it. And we don't even know when he's going to be back. We don't even know if he's going to be back before the end of the season. It's
a very not good situation for him, and I wish him only the best. And I have a lot of positive thoughts when it comes to Tom Kearney because I think Tom Kearney overall has, again, he's captain, different type of captain, but he's still a captain. And I wish him only the best, and I hope he does return. And it's given opportunities to others. Giannis, you just brought up the situation in midfield, in central midfield, because I think Anguissa hasn't been the player since we had the issue with COVID-19. I'm not saying that he has been effective. We don't know. We don't know the players that had it. We have a general idea, but no one has come out and said it. But he has not been the same. And, I'm hoping that we see a better Anguissa moving forward, along with Lamina and Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I think has been coming on. So I think we missed Kearney, but I think that there are other players there that can step up. So that's where I'm going on that. But let's go to the other side. Let's talk about, we already were mentioning this briefly. I think this is a significant loss. And I'm not saying that this is the difference of the match. But Calvert-Lewin is a massive loss for Everton. I've been listening to commentary on it, kind of downplaying a little bit. I'm sorry, Giannis, I can't downplay this loss. If Fulham had a loss on this magnitude, we'd be talking about it. This is significant, losing Calvert-Lewin. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. It is, because he's been playing lights out. He's gone from a player who was sort of peripheral at the start of the season to the England lineup. Then he had a little bit of a drought. He started scoring goals again. His movement has been, I think, he looks fitter. His fluidity's been a lot better off the ball. He's been playing very, very well. It is a big loss for them, but I'm not going to discount the work of Richarlison. I think he's been playing very well. I think his one of the things that I liked about Richarlison's game is that he looks to have a little bit more energy. He looks to pick a little bit more pace, more of a willingness to drop back in the midfield and pick the ball up. He's creating chances as well, and I think he's really beginning to look like the player that Everton had signed and expected. I actually didn't doubt his ability. You could see it was just a little bit too many histrionics and all about him. And if you look at someone like, let's look at Haller that left West Ham recently. histrionics and what have you can only take you so far before an organisation loses patience. And Richarlison has really stepped up the plate. He's a dangerous player. And Calvert-Lewin's a big loss for them, but I'm not going to, they've got other players that can burn us. The first game, Iwobi and Digne really did a number on us, and we have to shut them down. And Richarlison, I'm sure, is going to push forward a little bit. And Tosin and Anderson are going to have to keep an eye on his runs, because I think in the midfield, I think we can give them a real going, and the back four's decent. If Hammers comes in, he creates a little spark and quality. So, we're going to be under the cosh for large portions of the game. But Angelotti will regard it as a loss with Calvert-Lewin, but he's got other players that can fill in, and he might slightly adjust the formation to account for that. But Richarlison also worries me. So it's nice that Calvert-Lewin isn't playing, but we're going to have to keep an eye on him.
Okay. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the players that we should be concerned about on Everton. We're going to break down the match. And Giannis and I, at the very end, will share our predictions for this upcoming match on Sunday. Okay, Giannis, we already talked about some players. So, again, you're Scott Parker. Who are you trying to really just take out of this match to really limit their effectiveness? Because, again, like you said, they have some really talented players. Richarlison, you already mentioned. James Rodriguez. But you're Scott Parker. What's the type of game plan? Again, we'll get into more of that in just a second, but what players would you be concerned at? You say, listen, we need to limit these players.
Well, Iwobi had a very good game against us at the Cottage, so I believe Joe Bryan was playing at left back for that game, so we're going to have Robinson, and I think that Robinson, he's not been in his best form since return from suspension, but I think he's more than capable of keeping an eye on him. We're going to have good cover in terms of Digne. To the extent where Decordova may have to play as a wing back. I think Digne is their best player. I really do. I think he's just so consistent in terms of, the first touch is excellent. Work rate up and down the wings. He's a good passer of the ball. He's a very good tackler, good communicator. And he's captain for many reasons. The other point is Sigurdsson. And Gylfi Sigurdsson's consistent as can be, but Harrison Reed is playing as well as he's ever played for this club.
Absolutely.
And Harrison, I'm not saying we're going to go back to the old days of the 80s where he's going to clock him in the first 10 minutes, get a yellow card and, a la Vinnie Jones and shut him up for the next 80. But Sigurdsson will find out very quickly but that Reed will be on his case. And Andres Gomez is going to be one we're going to keep an eye out for if he starts.
Yep.
That's the thing. They've got creativity in the middle of the park and up front. But I do think width is where they could cause us those problems. So if we can keep an eye on Iwobi one-on-one with Robinson and double coverage for Digne on the left, I think we should be okay. Counter-attacking, we showed last week against the Spammers that we can cause lots of problems. And, going back to the Tom Kearney thing, Russ, it's not like last week we didn't have enough chances to bury them. We should have buried them, and that's going to be the key. Can we put one of them away?
It's being clinical.
And be clinical and just I still don't know how we didn't beat them last week.
It's crazy, Giannis, because I think we keep saying this as you started the show. The good performances are nice, but at some point you need all 3 points if Fulham want to survive in the Premier League, stay up, and we all want that. It feels like they're this close, but how many matches have I said they're this close? At some point you need to close that gap, score the goals, and win the match. And all matches, again, they have to go in with the attitude that they can win. I know the history at Goodison Park. I understand it. But records were meant to be broken, my friend. So, again, they should have confidence that they can hurt this team. But before we look at it from a Fulham perspective, and what I like doing on the show, what's great about the show is we can also look at it from an Everton perspective. So I'm going to put you in the shoes of Carlo Angelotti. What would be your strategy to beat Fulham?
I would probably say go on the front foot from the start and see if you can unsettle our defensive shape and see if you can get an early goal. Because one of the things I've loved about the last 12, 13 games is our discipline on the whole has been very good. thinking about the games where we got dominated, I mean, in that stretch, Leicester, had 8 injuries, didn't have Vardy, but they were the better side. We looked at the Cottage, we looked a bit flat. But our performances away from home have been better than they have at home for some reason. Maybe it's the yellow, I don't know. Looking like giant lemons running around the field. But we do play well away from home. So knowing that we need the win, Angelotti will probably say, okay, let's go at the buggers. Let's go at them and see if we can score a goal. Because if we score a goal early, they're going to have a problem. They have to come back into it.
Right.
The longer we leave it at 0-0, we give it 0-0, the better chance we might be able to nick something. And it would be nice to say that we could impose ourselves on Everton.
Right.
But the reality is they've got too much talent. So we have to find a way to be cagey, be coy, and try and capitalise on chances. And the next time Cav misses these 10-yard... It reminds me of there's a video that was doing the rounds about a Galatasaray fan who there was something wrong with the TV and he started smashing it. And honestly, I came so close to that. It's like, how many bloody chances do you need to bury it? The good news, Russ, is that we're up against Pickford. And
yes,
Pickford,
we haven't mentioned him. Yep.
Yeah, and Pickford for me is not England number 1. I think it should be Pope because the Pope saves. And number 2, Pickford has the dropsies, and I think if we can put pressure on him, we might be able to get something. They've got a big back 4, and we're terrible at set pieces. But shots from distance, who knows? And if you don't shoot, you don't score. If you don't score, you don't win. I think Pickford's having an up and down season, so he's there to be taken.
Okay. Giannis, let's do the flip on this. I'm going to put you in the shoes of Scott Parker. We're going to really break this down because I want to talk about formation after this, along with starting 11, because, again, I'm curious if you were him, what formation you would go with. Before that, what would be your strategy to getting all 3 points? Because, again, a point, we would all say at a different part of the season, a point's fine. Point's not good enough. They need to go for victories. They need to go for the win. So I'm just asking you, if you're him, what would you do? What would be your strategy to beat this team?
I think we have to play 2 up front. And that's the first thing. I think we need to open it up in the playbook a little bit. I think and you're absolutely right. We've got, 2 wins and 9 draws, which is...
You have to start going for it. You can't play passive and just wait for a team to make a mistake, Giannis. I like the fact that we can beat teams on the counter, but at some point, you have to take the initiative and you have to go for the victory. And I think they need to change the mentality a little bit. And this is going to be tough because I know how Scott Parker's mentality, how it seems to be, that he's a little bit conservative and he likes to control the matches. But at some point, I think it's okay to say, you know what, we need to change things up. We need to take it to this team. Now, this team, like you said, is a very good side. So you're him. You just said you would put 2 up front. Yeah,
I would. And the question mark is going to be then who he puts up front. Scotty Parker was, was revered as a player, various London clubs, England International, but he was always a conservative player.
Right. And we're seeing that. Right.
And we're seeing that. So the question then becomes, who do you put up front? We saw Marja for whatever limited time.
10 minutes.
Yeah. And, he went from Sunderland, scored goals that's League One. Went to France, done okay, but this is quite a step up. What do we, does he start up front? Do you put Decordova-Reid up front? But then I'd be worried about Dinia's runs.
Yep.
I've got a horrible feeling he's going to put Cavs up front again.
He could.
He could put Cavs and Mitra up front, which doesn't give us that much pace. I'm hoping this week Scotty did a real number in terms of working on the crosses because we can moan at Mitro.
The service hasn't been good enough, Brady.
Not been Brady.
I can't believe I just called you Brady. Giannis.
Brady. and for those of you that don't know, no, it's but hey, much like Tom Brady, it's all about delivery. So it's Robinson makes these fantastic runs, but never seems to be able to, like the old Ryan Sess, knock it back or get the crosses in. And Tete seems to slow down on the quality of his crosses. We need good crosses to test them because they've got players like Mina. Even that's a challenge for Demetrius, but they're going to have to be accurate. accurate balls in the box.
Okay.
This is going to be a big thing and trying to anticipate or work on set pieces. I need to see a bit more work from Lookman. I think he's been in and out a little bit, and I'm not going to have a go at any of the players. I think players are tired right now. The Christmas schedule was brutal. The fields are heavy. The weather's been awful. You've got the pandemic restrictions that can take a toll on everybody.
Yep.
But back to the original premise: 2 strikers up front. Let's open up the book. Because we've got Burnley on Wednesday.
We do.
So let's see how it goes and see if we can have a crack at them. And I don't think they're the best back four in the world. And Pickford, as I said, has got the dropsies. But I don't think we can play it conservative, not anymore.
Okay. That's going to lead me to ask you the starting 11, what you would do, and then also formation-wise, because it's interesting. Fulham changed the formation against West Ham, but would they revert back to 3 at the back against an Everton side? What would you do, Giannis? Give me your starting 11 in the formation you would use.
I think I'd play a 4-4-2.
Okay, so you're going all 4-4-2.
I'm going 4-4-2. I think Teti starts at right, Robbo at left, Tosin and Anderson in the middle. Obviously, Areola. And I smile when I say Areola because I was in a local supermarket on Tuesday, and I was wearing my Fulham face mask. And I was getting some chicken tenders for my wife, and the guy says, "Oh, Fulham supporter, do you like Areola?" It's just random. And I remember I'm the way I'm living.
Yeah,
super keeper. He said, "Oh, love him, my favourite keeper." Oh, brilliant. How odd is that one?
Yeah.
And Areola's been super. A couple of mistakes, but he's been super. Midfield. Oh God, this is going to be oh dear. I think. Reed has to be kept in there.
Okay.
I would play Loftus-Cheek in front, and probably Lamina. So there's the 3. You can see it could morph into a 4-3-3 as well. I think that Mitra has to be in there. Decordova-Reed, I'd put it on the right, and Lookman to the left. So we could have a 4-3-3. 4-3-3. I think Lookman is going to take a careful look at. Decordova-Reed, don't ever remove him from the lineup. Please don't. It can't be done because his work rate is excellent, and we're just going to have to keep it very tight. We've had the good news is we were knocked out of the FA Cup.
Yep.
We've had a week or so to work on the formation.
And they're coming off of the FA Cup.
Yeah, and that was a disappointing result against Bournemouth, and their league results haven't been stellar recently. And I'm thinking of Burnley, aren't I? So the extra time game, and I'm wondering if he might use it as an opportunity to make some rotation because it was a very difficult game, honestly. Yep. But I would certainly, you've got to play it more attacking and more open.
I think at some point you just have to, again, these situations of just trying to potentially nick a point or nick a victory, I think those days have to be gone. I think if you truly are in it to get out of the situation that you're in and stay in this division, I think you're going to have to go for it. And I think he's going to have to basically change his ways a little bit and be, I hate to say it, be a little bit more brave. And again, he's just conservative. It's not that he's not brave. It's just that I don't know if it's truly in his DNA, Giannis, to really go for it. But I think at some point, I think you need to stay in the division. I think that they can compete. They've proven that. They can compete with pretty much every team in this league, except I'll say Manchester City, but you could say that they hung with them in the second half. But beyond that, they can compete. But competing's not good enough. It's just not good enough at this point. It needs to be better. We need to start winning. And I think there needs to be a change of mentality a little bit. And I think it needs to start it with Scott Parker. And again, I think Scott Parker's done a very good job. This is not me going at Scott Parker, Giannis. I think he just needs to look at the situation at hand. So, you know what? We just need to adjust it a little bit. We have the players to do it. We just need to be more forward thinking. That's all I'm saying for Scott Parker. I'm not saying to change his DNA completely. He could still have his defensive backdrop to Fulham, but I think you just need to be more aggressive, and it'll be interesting to see what he does. Okay. All right, my friend. Time to end the show. Before we do, though, we have to give our predictions. All right, Giannis. It's interesting because when you look at this, it's funny. I was listening to the Fulhamish podcast. I'll give him a props again. They had on an Everton fan, and he predicted 2-0. And I get it because that's something that a rival supporter is going to do. They just look at Fulham as Fulham, and they think, okay, we should beat this team 2-0. It makes sense. If I was an Everton fan, I'd probably be doing the same thing. But I've watched enough of Fulham. So I have a different thought on the match and a different prediction. But I'll go to you first.
I think we're going to win this.
Really?
Yes, I do. Listen, we're overdue. We're overdue. Everybody likes the way we play. Everybody likes, defensively our shape, what we've done since the first 3-4 games, the new players that have come in. But, and I'm going to tell you why I think this is a little twist here. I'm going to say we're going to win 1-0. There's something that came up on Twitter this week, and I'm sure you've seen it, Russ.
Yep.
There's been a lot of coverage of AEW Dynamite, the wrestling.
Okay.
But this can be a good thing. Because Scotty could turn around to the players and go, well, you know what, we're doing our thing and we're doing our best and blah, 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 and zum, zum, zum. But you know what, do we get the respect we deserve? And not necessarily from the opponents that we have, but those who are closer to our mirror. And you see where I'm going with this. So this can be an extra spur where you can say, well, okay, everybody but the dog is expecting us to go to Goodison Park and lose. Our record is horrendous. Wouldn't it be great to go and shut some people up and then go to Burnley, because we're right back in it? And I think there was enough guts and guile and fight from the game against the Spammers to tell me there's lots of life in the old dogs left, and we do play better away from home, I believe, than we do at home.
We do. So, I totally agree with that, Giannis.
And I'm going to predict a 1-0 win, and I'm going to predict that Dacre-Dover-Reid is going to score the winner.
Wow. And it's funny that you mention this, because while you're saying this, and they're not the same player. Let me just stress this. They're not the same player. But I really enjoyed and have an appreciation for Chris Baird.
Yeah.
Bobby Dacre-Dover-Reid isn't Bairdinho. They're different types of players. But it's that mentality. It's that never give up attitude, giving it everything that you have. Bobby Dacre-Dover-Reid does that. So did Chris Baird. It's a player that you need. You don't need the best player at each position. You don't need, like we would say here, an all-star team. You need the right players. He's one of the right players. You need someone that's going to give you 100% wherever you put him at. So I understand your thoughts on Bobby Dacre-Dover-Reid. But going into this match, it's funny because, again, it all adds up. Everyone's going to say, you know what, it's Everton. Fulham do terrible at Goodison Park. As I said earlier, Giannis, records were meant to be broken. And as we're talking about this, I'm thinking, should I hedge my bets and go for a draw, Giannis? Listen, it's a safe way to play this. It's a safe way to play this. But you know what? They need the victory. I'm already advocating they need to go for the victory. So who am I to just predict 1-1? I'm going to predict 2-1 to Fulham. Records were meant to be broken. I'm going 2-1 to Fulham. I think that West Ham match, again, when you look at it, you need to analyze that and look at it and say, this is what we did wrong. If we do this a little bit better, if we're more clinical, these draws become victories. It's really that close. It's that fine margins. I'm going 2-1 to Fulham.
I like that. And you know what, Russell? Let's not forget this will be the first time since 1959 that we've gone to Goodison Park and there are no fans.
Let's be honest. That's a big deal. The fact that there are no supporters there, it's a big deal. We've been talking about during the season. It's difficult when you look at these matches and you think, okay, you're going on the road, but there are no supporters there. It's just your side against the other side. Whoever plays better wins the match. And that, to me, again, makes this, I want to say, even harder for a team like Everton, who probably are thinking, okay, we can dominate this team at home, but you don't have that advantage. They have a very good side. They have a very good coach. Fulham should go into Goodison Park with no fear. Forget about the history. History means nothing to this team and that team. It means nothing. History is thrown out the window. No supporters there. It's the Fulham players against the Everton players. Parker versus Angelotti. Go for it. 2-1 to Fulham.
Love it. Coming you whites.
Okay. Well,
Pumped.
Giannis, thank you so much for doing this
Thank
episode.
You, Russ. Always a pleasure, matey.
Listen, it's been fun. I want to mention this one more time. We did hope to get Richard Buxton on with us from Quick Liverpool. Richard was a great guest the first time around, and hopefully we can get him back to talk about Liverpool because he covers Liverpool and Everton. But our connection, he couldn't hear us, and he said he thought it had something to do with his mic. We really couldn't hear him. He couldn't hear us. So, Richard, thank you so much for the effort, and we'll get you back on Cottage Talk soon. But, Giannis, let's wrap this up. Let's on a good note. We're both predicting an upset Fulham victory. For Giannis Janaeus, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.